Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Grizzly Tools. This is the first part in a four-part webinar series surrounding the use and applications of the Grizzly Tool package produced by FRI Research. My name is Cam McClelland, and I am a senior biologist for the Grizzly Bear Monitoring Project, and I'll be taking you through this presentation. In this webinar, we'll be going over what FRI Research is, the history of the Grizzly Bear program, bear ecology basics, and what are grizzly bear tools and how they are used. We'll further get into their applications. FRI Research is a not-for-profit, non-advocacy group. Our mission statement is to develop understandable scientific knowledge and useful land management tools based on strong, peer-reviewed science. We are located in Hinton, Alberta. The Grizzly Bear program was created in 1998 to study the potential impact of a proposed coal mine south of Hinton, Alberta. The original study area comprised of areas of Jasper National Park and the Yellowhead County. This program was created due to lack of local and regional data on grizzlies, as was created by industry partners and government partners. Over the years, this initial study area has expanded to include all of Alberta's grizzly bear range. As you can see here, this first initial study area has expanded over the years to include all of Alberta's grizzly bear range. Currently, we're taking a more focused approach and have created a grizzly bear monitoring program in this pink or purple area. Over the past 26 years, we have produced 180 publications in 70 plus peer-reviewed scientific journals. This has been completed with the help of 87 collaborators from 5 countries, and we have also produced 52 graduate theses. This could not have been accomplished without the $29 million in funding contributed by government entities, oil and gas entities, forest entities, and academic entities. Alberta uses several different management zones to manage grizzly bears, the largest of which are the bear management areas. Alberta is separated into 7 bear management areas, represented here with the black outline. Here we have BMA 1, BMA 2, BMA 3, BMA 4, BMA 5, and BMA 6, as well as BMA 7 located in the Swollen Hills area. These BMAs are separated by major highways. BMAs are further split into recovery and support zones. Recovery zones are where the government has said that they will recover the grizzly bear population, and the support zones are there to support this recovery. Recovery and support zones are further split into core and secondary zones, and these are managed for access management, with different road density thresholds being in place in core and secondary areas. These will become more clear as we go through the presentation. Management zones are from the 2020 Alberta Grizzly Bear Recovery Plan, which was created by the government of Alberta. So let's get into a little bit about the grizzly bear conservation efforts in Alberta. Grizzly bear population estimates began in 2004, and with the latest one being conducted in 2018. We have conducted population estimates in all of Alberta's BMAs. Population estimates in 2004 and 2005 revealed low numbers. This led to a hunting moratorium in 2006 and grizzly bears being designated a threatened species in 2010. New population estimates in 2014 in BMA 3 and 2018 in BMA 4 indicated an increase in these numbers in these individual BMAs. However, it is unknown how BMAs that were sampled once are recovering. Currently, we estimate there to be around 900 grizzly bears in Alberta. Now let's get into a little bit about the grizzly bear ecology basics. Grizzly bears are long-lived hibernating omnivores and have low reproduction cycles. They also travel over large areas and have a large home range size. Male home ranges are much larger than female home ranges, and females with cubs of the year have the smallest home ranges. Bears move and use different regions of home ranges annually in response to plant phenology. Grizzly bears eat different types of foods at different times of the year. In spring, they focus on roots, ungulates, and early green-up, such as horsetails and grasses. In summer, they eat green forbs and then move to berries at the end of the summer. In fall, they focus on berries and roots. Grizzly bears are mostly herbivores, however, they will eat meat when they can get it. Grizzly bears use many different habitat types, however, they prefer forested habitats with openings and alpine and subalpine habitats. Many bear foods are positively associated with disturbances, such as cut blocks, roads, pipelines, and seismic lines. Grizzly bears have slow reproductive rates. Females generally become sexually mature at 4 years of age. Females produce young every 3 to 5 years and can give birth up to 4 cubs, however, 1 to 2 is the most common. Cub mortality is highest in year 1, then declines significantly in years 2 and 3. The breeding period occurs from May to July. In grizzly bears, implantation is delayed. This means that if an egg is fertilized during the breeding season, it won't be implanted into the uterus until around November or December. Implantation only occurs if the female has accumulated enough fat on her body to sustain herself and her offspring until the spring. If the female has not accumulated at least 20% body fat, the fertilized egg will be dissolved and no cubs will be born. Bears give birth during denning, and it can occur between late January and February. Bears hibernate each winter, and denning periods vary by sex, age, and annual climate. Females, especially pregnant females, den for longer periods of time, starting in mid-October and ending in mid-May at the longest extreme. Dens are found in many habitat types, including alpine and forested habitats. Here we have a figure explaining the range of den days by age, sex, and reproductive classes. The gray here is time spent in the den, and the red here is a range of den exit and den entry. These black squares are the mean den exit and den entry dates for each age, sex, and reproductive class. As you can see, females have longer denning periods than adult males and subadult females and males. Now let's get into humans and bears. Bears live on a fragmented landscape and are very adaptable to change. However, humans are still the largest contributor to grizzly bear mortality. Grizzly bears can die from natural and human causes. Natural causes include other bears and low cub survival rates. However, as I stated previously, survival rates increase after 1 year. Human-caused mortalities include illegal kills, vehicle strikes, self-defense, treaty harvest, and agency removals, with vehicle strikes being the most common. That being said, many of these categories here are underreported. Over the years, the grizzly bear program has used 3 main data collection methods. Camera data can provide information on grizzly bear presence and absence and productivity. Hair snag data, where grizzly bears leave their hair behind on barbed wire or trees, provides data on genetics, population numbers, and population structure. GPS collar data, where grizzly bears are tranquilized and fitted with a GPS collar, provide information on habitat use and movement. Between 1999 and 2021, the grizzly bear program has collected over 1 million GPS points. These have been collected at 4-hour to 30-minute intervals. Bears were collared in each BMA. However, some BMAs have seen larger collaring efforts and a higher concentration of data. Here we see collar data in action. On this video, we have 5 collared bears, and from this, we can see where the bears prefer for habitat selection, what their movement rates are, how they move, and we can establish their home range sizes. One of the more useful uses for collar data is to inform habitat selection. GPS collar points combined with landscape attributes such as terrain variables, canopy and land cover variables, and human disturbance variables can inform where grizzly bears are selecting on the landscape. Okay, so let's get into what are grizzly bear tools. We know that grizzly bears rely on their habitat to provide three essentials for life. The first being resources, such as food and water, the second being security to prevent excessive rates of mortality, and the third being mobility to allow dispersal into new territory and maintain genetic diversity. Grizzly bear tools are spatial models that were developed to predict all three of these attributes, with the goal to support and inform the long-term survival of grizzly bears and their habitats in Alberta. This means we want to preserve high-quality habitat and reduce mortality risk, forecast the effects of development, and compare the relative impact of multiple scenarios. Let's first start with what our habitat tools are. Our first habitat tool is our RSF tool. RSF stands for Resource Selection Function, and higher values of RSF equal higher probability that grizzly bears will use that area. RSF is modeled from GPS collar locations and 6 forest, terrain, and landscape variables. However, RSF does not model where bears are on the landscape, just where bears are more likely to be. Bears may still be present in areas of low RSF. It is important to note that our RSF maps match the distribution of bears from our DNA inventories. Looking at this map here, we can see that our higher RSF values are in blue and our lower RSF values are in red. Our higher RSF areas include the front range of the Rockies and along valley bottoms. Lower RSF values include mountain peaks and as we go further east. Our next tool is our risk tool. The risk tool predicts the probability of grizzly bear mortality and models this using landscape variables. On the right here, we have a figure depicting mortalities of grizzly bears by time spent in areas of higher mortality risk. Up here, we have time spent as 2 to 4 years, 1 year, and 1 week. You will see that bears that spend more time in risky areas have lower mortality risk than bears that spend less time in risky areas, as they are more used to the risk. However, on a whole, grizzlies that spend more time in risky areas have a significantly higher chance of dying than those that don't. It is important to note that areas of high mortality risk can include areas of high RSF values. Risk models are generally based on landscape and anthropogenic variables. Anthropogenic variables include proximity to roads, trails, agricultural areas, and protected areas. Over here, you see that within the mountains, we have relatively low risk to those areas that are east of the mountains and into the foothills. The Habitat States tool is a different way of looking at RSF and risk, combining both tools into one and simplifying them. Habitat represents areas of low risk of mortality and high RSF values. Sinks represent areas with high risk of mortality and high RSF values and then track bears into areas with high risk of mortality. We want to reduce sinks and increase habitat for bears. On the map here, you can see that habitat lies mainly in the mountains and along the first bit of the foothills, whereas sinks lie along this area of the foothills with a large amount of anthropogenic development and a large amount of human use. Now let's look at resource selection function, risk, and the Habitat States tool side by side. So first, let's look at an area where we have high RSF values and high risk values. So here, you can see that this is creating an area of a primary sink. Now let's look at an area where we have high RSF values, such as here. However, we have low risk values. This is creating an area of habitat that will be a place where bears can be safe and have very high food quality. Now, let's get into our roads tools. Roads are the highest contributor to human-caused grizzly bear mortality by increasing collision risk and facilitating access into grizzly bear range. Having a road density of greater than 0.6 kilometer by kilometer squared in core grizzly bear watershed units, or a road density of greater than 0.75 kilometer by kilometer squared in secondary grizzly bear watershed units has adverse consequences on grizzly bears. With the roads tool, we are able to determine road density in an area based on multiple road scenarios. Reclaiming, gating, or temporary closing roads can reduce road density on the landscape. It is important to run multiple scenarios of addition and removal of roads to determine which scenario will have the least impact on grizzly bears. As you can see from this figure here, we have road density increasing the further east of the mountains we get. And this is kind of consistent along all of our BMAs. Now let's get into our Sightability tool. Reducing sightlines from roads is a mitigation tool for landscapes with high road densities. Using LiDAR-derived elevation data and this tool, we can determine where sightlines can be reduced. This can be used to reduce mortality risk by providing cover for bears. The tool can also simulate how regenerating stands will reduce sightlines as they grow. This tool directly complements the road density tool and can be used to reduce mortality risk in areas of high road density where road densities can't be reduced. Here we see two scenarios. One where we have an open cut block with no berm, and one where a buffer or berm was created to prevent and reduce sightlines. We see that with this tool, we can determine exactly how much sightlines are reduced and where they are reduced. Now let's get into the final tool that we're going to talk about in this webinar series, which is the denning RSF tool. It is important to note that bears typically do not reuse dens. This tool can be used to determine higher probability areas where denning may occur, and is determined with collar and den data combined with landscape variables. This tool was completed based on research conducted in the BMA3 and BMA2 areas, and was completed with a smaller area of research compared to other tools. This means that this tool may not be as broadly applicable. While the denning RSF tool may not be as broadly applicable, dens were generally found within the following landscape characteristics. They were found in areas of dense canopy and dense lateral cover. They were found greater than 150 meters from roads, greater than 300 meters from well sites, in dry conifer stands, with easy access to spring food, i.e. sweet vetch within 150 meters. They were found in non-saturated, non-organic soils. And they were also found on slopes with a mean of 34 degrees slope. They're also found on aspects likely to accumulate snow and at an elevation between 795 meters and 2,284 meters. Another important aspect of this webinar series is interpretation. Tool results do not provide black and white answers, and results must be interpreted. Models are as accurate as the data they were built on, and no model is perfect. We recommend running multiple scenarios to determine the best course of action. We have a suggested order of tool applications. We recommend running road density first, then habitat states, and then the Sightability tool. The grizzly bear tools have been used for a variety of applications and at a variety of scales. Examples include in forestry planning, cut block placement, shape and retention, access road building, and access management. In oil field planning, well pad placement, and access to energy sites. We can also use this to assess the impact of past developments by determining how the addition of pipelines and power lines have affected grizzly bear habitat. We can also use these tools in mine planning to determine haul road placement and the effect of open pit and the layout of mines on grizzly bear habitat. I would like to thank all the partners who have provided funding and aid over the past 26 years for the FRI Research Grizzly Bear Program. Funding partners include academic partners, oil and gas partners, forestry partners, and government partners. I have provided here some important publications that you may wish to screenshot and look up later. These publications are many of which were the basis for some of the Grizzly Bear tools. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Again, I am Cam McClelland. I'm a senior biologist with the Grizzly Bear Monitoring Program. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.